right, those of you who are on Instagram, good morning. Let me get Teams running. Join. Perfect. Turn everything on. Morning, everybody. Good morning. Let me go grab my hot beverage. I got a cup of tea.
I can't hear you, Mary.
You can't hear me? Oh, thank you. Every time I do this, I'm like, all right, I'm good to go. And then it's like, oh, we can't hear you. We can't see you. Okay. I'm going to grab a cup of tea real fast, bring it back over here, and then we'll get started. So good morning, everybody. Welcome to Friday Morning Fuel. We're going to talk about prebiotics and probiotics today. So I hope you guys are here and ready to learn something. Perfect. All right. Let me grab my cuppa, and then we'll get going, all right? Hope you guys are hungry, thirsty. Okay. Got my tea this morning. Drop that tea bag. I have herbal tea this morning. It's a blend. It's called Bengal Spice. So it's very like cinnamon, ginger kind of flavor. So it's still hot. I'm going to put that aside for right now. All right, good morning. All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks for being here. I know we took a break in April because we went really heavy for March. We had all of our coaches on for Friday Morning Fuel during the month of March. So it is an herbal tea, actually. So neither black or green tea, at least to my understanding. It's caffeine free. All right. Anyways, let's bring it back to today. I'm so excited to be here. We're going to talk about prebiotics and probiotics. And so most of you here have probably heard those terms before, or maybe you've never heard those terms, and that's what brought you in here today. Either way, we're going to do a little deep dive into what they are. Do they have any benefits? Is it something that I should be incorporating or supplementing? And just natural ways that you can get it through your diet. All right. So before we even dive into these two pieces, we're going to zoom out and take a look at the broader picture and talk about a little bit more anatomy. So with the gut is having a huge moment right now. There's lots of research being done. Lots of foods that you see contain probiotics. So there's a lot of momentum behind the research and science of our inner lining. So our bodies are host to all kinds of what we call just microbes. So those are things like bacteria, viruses, yeast, fungi. So they have a very symbiotic relationship with us. They live within us and on our skin, and in return, they provide benefits to us. So within our gut microbiome, we have all different kinds of bacteria. And in fact, there's so many different cultures that they haven't even identified all of them yet. So more research to come on that later. However, we do have good bacteria and we have bad bacteria. So again, both of those live generally in balance with one another, but there are times, depending on just certain illnesses or just changes in diet, when there becomes that imbalance between the two and you start to experience those digestive symptoms that you're probably familiar with, like upset tummy or different bowel movements and irritation. So that's kind of what's happening on the inside as far as we know. All right. So now that we have a better understanding of what our gut microbiome is, let's talk about our two pieces, our prebiotics and our probiotics. So our prebiotics are going to be food that we load in to the gut, specifically fiber-rich foods. So prebiotics are just naturally occurring types of fiber within food. It is specifically types of fiber that we cannot break down. Our bodies cannot break down. So we call those types insoluble fiber. So if you're familiar, there's many different kinds of fiber, but the two broad classifications are that we have soluble and insoluble types of fiber. The dietary guidelines for Americans recommends about 25 to 30 grams minimum of fiber per day. And that's something you want to spread out across your daily caloric intake. If you've ever consumed a large amount of fiber in one sitting, or if you've quickly ramped up your fiber, you've probably experienced some really uncomfortable digestive symptoms. So, space out that fiber throughout the day where you can. And fiber is found in most plant-based foods. So things like our whole grains, it's even in our nuts and seeds, fruits, vegetables, pretty much everything you're probably familiar with. So when we give our bodies probiotics, the gut microbiome then begins to ferment or break down that insoluble fiber for us. So it provides food to those bacterial cultures, and it also breaks down that food for us so that it can pass along and then we can get rid of it. So it goes both ways. We want to have plenty of nutrients for them, and then they provide a good digestion benefit for us. So let's talk about some foods that contain prebiotics. Again, a lot of it is, like I said, it's going to be your whole grains, your nuts, your seeds, as well as your fruits and vegetables. Some call outs for individual pieces that have a little bit more higher containing amounts of this, again, insoluble type of fiber. So we have things like our whole oats, apples, leeks, asparagus, bananas, even some more different kinds of like roots and greens, chicory root, Jerusalem artichokes, dandelion greens. I know it sounds like I'm getting really out there now, but you get the idea, is that a good variety of foods contain prebiotics. So it's not something that you really need to go grab a supplement for, or that you need to really cling on to, I'm just going to focus on oats, or I'm just going to focus on blueberries. All of them have benefits aside from the fiber that's in them as well. There's all kinds of minerals, vitamins, micronutrients that are available in these foods as well. All right, so bringing it up to supplement. That's good. So bringing it up to supplements. So do I need to supplement with prebiotics? Pretty much no. Like I said, if you are getting a good amount of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, and seeds in your diet, this should fulfill most of it. So the short answer, no, you don't need to supplement. However, if you are suffering from some kind of conditions, autoimmune diseases, maybe that's worth a conversation with your doctor to talk more about what options would be good for you if you should supplement. I know some people, just because their anatomy and their gut microbiome is different, everybody has, just like our DNA, our microbiomes are all unique and individual. So what works for me may not necessarily work for you or for the next person. All right. So if we now know what our prebiotics are, it's what we're loading on the front end. It's coming from our food sources first, and then maybe supplements second. So then let's talk about probiotics. So probiotics is probably the term you're more familiar with. It talks a lot more about it's in general media. There's probiotic supplements. There's lots of marketing for foods that like, oh, grab these, like probiotics, good for your gut. So is any of that true? Well, let's take a look. So what are probiotics? So if prebiotics are fiber that we find in foods, probiotics are actually going to be live microorganisms. So those microbes, those bacteria, that we have identified that provide benefits to our gut and our digestive system. So how many of you guys like yogurt? I imagine most people like yogurt. I know if you're a little bit lactose intolerant, I actually haven't looked to see if dairy-free alternatives, I have to imagine they will, just because of the way yogurt is made. But if you've ever picked up your container of yogurt and there's a little asterisk on here that says contains live active cultures. So that's what our probiotics are. It is essentially either naturally occurring or it has been added to food, supplement, or drink. And again, it provides some kind of benefit to us. It's generally 3 different kinds of bacteria. Again, within the FDA, within the US, the FDA kind of regulates like what can and can't be put into food, as well as what claims cannot be put on food labels as well. So they are required to identify that it has active and live cultures in it. That's a good sign that it has a good amount of probiotics. However, they cannot necessarily make claims about curing or alleviating certain conditions. So that's kind of where it walks the line there, is that probiotics are generally regarded as safe for consumption because they provide benefits, again, because it is very a specific type of culture that is being added. So lots of what we have done research on. All right, so what kind of foods contain probiotics? So anything fermented. So fermentation is a process by which we can preserve food. If you've ever consumed pickles, I mean, pickling and fermentation are very similar, and it's the use of those cultures that help preserve the life of that food. So things like sauerkraut. I love sauerkraut. I used to not be a fan of sauerkraut, but I've recently come around to like it because I do like pickles. So sauerkraut is a good option, as well as anybody who likes more kind of Asian style cuisines. Miso paste, which is made from fermented soybeans, and kimchi as well. More pickled vegetables. You can find all kinds of varieties of kimchi because you can pretty much, if it's a vegetable, you can pickle it, you can ferment it. And as well, I already mentioned yogurt. Many dairy products are fortified with active cultures. Again, think more like your yogurt bases. Your cheeses are made from bacterial cultures, but through the cooking process, those are pretty much destroyed, just like with regular milk. Regular milk is pasteurized, which means it's treated at a very high temperature to kill off that bacteria. But things like buttermilk and possibly even raw milk contain those live active cultures. And then you can also find supplements. So sometimes in capsules, sometimes in powder form, you can find a probiotic supplement as well. So since they are kind of all the rage and they are everywhere, do I need to supplement with probiotics? Well, let's do short answer, long answer once again. So short answer, no. You can pretty much get those probiotics from different kinds of foods. Some of those mentioned, as well as consuming things like fermented beverages, things like kefir, which is a kind of drinkable yogurt, as well as kombucha. Kombucha is also made with live active cultures as well. All right. Now, if you're just a little bit less adventurous and you decide that I don't really enjoy those kinds of foods, or a little too exotic for my choice, or maybe you just understandably don't like sour flavors, because I know a lot of pickle things are vinegar based, and depending on the humans, some people really like that and others not so much. So in that case, a supplement might be a good option for you if you're not able to consume it through foods. Tea is so good. All right. So some of our foods that contain probiotics, again, some of those pickled vegetables, kimchi, sauerkraut. There are a couple of grain products that have been produced with fortified cultures, things like sauerkraut. I'm really into the sour trend, you guys. Sourdough bread. So sourdough bread is also made with live active cultures, so good for the gut as well. And just a couple of other things, like we've already mentioned, the fermented soy products. Bee pollen as well was an interesting one that I found in doing some research, that bee pollen contains small amounts of probiotics too. All right. A situation when it could be beneficial to take probiotics. So we talked about supplement, we talked about getting it through food. Going to have a little bit of a conversation about gut health here. So if you've ever experienced a foodborne illness, so if you've eaten something that was contaminated or you experience symptoms, almost immediately, less than 24 hours within consumption. So those kinds of issues that you have internally, there's an imbalance between the good bacteria and the bad bacteria. And so the good bacteria are trying incredibly hard to just keep everything in balance. So if you can keep something down, a probiotic supplement might be beneficial for you. But again, that's going to vary person to person. If you've also ever been afflicted with just a general infection and you've been to your doctor will frequently prescribe antibiotics. And so an antibiotic is just a broad spectrum, kind of targets everything. So it targets good, it targets bad, but kind of destroys everything in the process. And so if you are taking antibiotics, it might also be beneficial to take a probiotic supplement to help just repopulate some of that good bacteria and help to bring things back to speed. It might even lessen some symptoms, but again, the research is still just not really strong there about whether or not the probiotic could be beneficial. It might be worth trying. It might just be writing out your symptoms and just seeing how it goes. All right. So talking about how to make it into food. So I'm going to be making for this morning for breakfast, I'm going to combine some of my probiotics. I'm going to combine some of my prebiotics. And I'm going to make a very nice and yummy yogurt bowl. All right. I've been talking a lot. Let me grab some water here. You guys like my table? I got a table for our Friday morning fuel setup. All right. So I'm going to start with some probiotics as my base. I've got a nice, lovely container of Greek yogurt here. I will call out that this is non-fat Greek yogurt. So in addition to the Greek yogurt, I'm going to add some things to it. I'm going to add some things to my yogurt bowl to add not just fat, but other nutrients into it as well. So I've got a little bit in this container left. If you are on a journey of changing your body composition, so weight loss or weight gain, you'd probably want to measure out how much yogurt you are going to consume. I am just really chilling in maintenance right now, so I'm not going to measure how much. I'm going to measure with my heart, as we like to say. All right, so also recommend a little tip in case you guys don't know already. When you open your yogurt containers, don't drain off that water that's kind of pooled at the top. That's actually meant to stay in there, and you're meant to mix it all up so that it has a really nice, smooth consistency. But if it really just grosses you out, I get that, because I used to be that way as well. I used to just really not like the sight of seeing that little water there, like, ew, I don't think that's supposed to be there. All right. Okay, we're going to set that aside. All right, let's add some prebiotics. So I'm going to go for some higher fiber kind of foods. I'm going to keep it simple today. I've got blueberries and I've got a very, very nice ripe banana. I went to the store and I got a bunch of bananas, and I don't know about you guys, but sometimes when I'm unpacking my bags, a bag will seemingly go missing. And then as a result of that, like my bananas, they wind up just ripening somewhere. And then finally, a couple days later, I find that bag and I'm like, oh, that's where you went. So I got some really ripe bananas. Maybe I'll make some banana bread today as well. All right. So I've added some blueberries. I've added some bananas. Let me chop that up just a little bit. So when I was doing research for this session for prebiotics, so one thing I would like to call out is that a lot of the research for prebiotics is really strong about consuming prebiotics raw. And so that makes a lot of sense, because as you cook food, specifically as you cook food, so when you cook food, food undergoes a very chemical change. And in the result of that, some nutrients and compounds get destroyed during the cooking process. So I can see why the recommendation is there to consume prebiotics raw. However, some of our foods like onion and garlic and leeks, very, very aromatic and provide a lot of flavor. Those are really just better cooked, in my personal opinion. There's obviously times when you consume onions and garlic raw, but I would just take that with a grain of salt. If you like it cooked, eat it cooked. If you like it raw, eat it raw. All right. Bananas. Okay. I don't have any honey, raw onions. Yeah, right? I mean, raw onions, man, on like, your tacos because it's Cinco de Mayo and I'm gonna have some tacos tonight. But, just on top of your tacos or on a really good burger that just like the spiciness that comes from biting into an onion. Onions. I love onions. Love, love, love onions. All right. I don't have any honey, unfortunately. So I am going to add a little bit of sweetener. Sweetener, you can use any kind of sweetener here. For me today, I'm just going to use what I have. So I have maple syrup. If you're just like, that's a really weird combination, first I would say don't knock it until you try it. But also, it's just what I have, and I'm just trying to be frugal, I'm just trying to be frugal as well. All right, so I've got my yogurt. I've got some very nice fiber-rich fruits here. I'm going to add in some more fat to make up for the fact that this is non-fat yogurt here. So I'm going to go in and add some chia seeds, and I have some sliced almonds as well. So again, just wanted to remind anybody here that I am not really going for any kind of weight loss or weight gain. I am just currently maintaining, which is why I'm not really going to measure anything. But since I am going to do both seeds and nuts, which tend to be just more energy dense foods, higher caloric foods, I'm going to do just a little bit smaller portions here. And then we're going to add some flavor, some spices as well to go with it. All right, I got my almonds, got my chia seeds. We're going to try to do a very beautiful drizzle of maple syrup. I'm not sure how well that's going to go. In fact, I'm probably just going to use my little spoon that I grabbed here to pour a little bit in. And a nice little drizzle. And I drizzled it on the table. Nice. All right, this is a cinnamon and vanilla infused maple syrup, by the way. Rich Me was at the grocery store shopping that day. All right, a little bit of maple syrup, right? A little bit of maple syrup. And then lastly, I'm going to give it just a little touch of cinnamon. So we've talked many times before about the use of spices in your food. So many times people think of spices as something that they need to have it as like a seasoning, or they need to like cook it or anything like that. Absolutely, you should do those things. But also, a lot of times, just things like cinnamon are just really good to just sprinkle on a little bit of oatmeal into your smoothies. Spices generally have lots of antioxidants in them. Again, those vitamins and minerals as well. All right, let's say we do a little bit of a taste test and see how it goes. Unfortunately, all my silverware is back behind you guys, so I'm going to make this go in and work. I did see a couple of comments in the chat, so give me just a moment and I'll pull those up and see if I can talk about those a little bit. All right, here we go. First bite. That's pretty good. So I am consuming Greek yogurt. Greek yogurt has a much tangier taste. It's also more dense in protein because of the way it is processed. So when they process it, they essentially strain it extra times, and so straining out things like water and other things leaves a very dense concentration of nutrients behind, like protein. But you could obviously use any kind of yogurt here. I know many people do not like the tangy taste of Greek yogurt, and personally, sometimes it's a little bit too much for me, which is why I think sweetener is a good little addition as well. All right, let's see what's going on in the comments here. What's everybody doing for Cinco de Mayo? Is anybody doing Cinco de Mayo? All right. All right, so Melissa asks, what is your stance on the view that our American ultra-processed food diet is causing these gastrointestinal issues, whereas other countries don't tend to see this level of issues? That's a really deep question, Melissa, and I feel like I could write like a 10-page essay about that. So let me try to let me try to condense that down and concisely answer that. So I do think that yes, here in the US, in America, that we have very different procedures for the production of food as well as the regulation and manufacturing of food. Um, we could obviously go into more conversations about socioeconomic, geography, politics, because that very much plays into it, as well as what food is available in what areas, how much food costs. So it's kind of difficult to say, but yes, I do think that in other countries that they have a little bit um, more strict regulations about how food is manufactured. But I do also believe that in other countries as well, that there is a strong cultural influence as to what people consume and how they set up their diet. So that's a really, really great question. Perfect. All right. We are going to wind things down. Anahead's doing margaritas with friends at a, what is a pinball party? Is that? Oh, pinball machines. Oh, okay, okay, perfect. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna be doing. I'm gonna make carnitas tonight for dinner. Carnitas is basically just a shredded pork dish that's been cooking in a lot of like lime and orange and onion juices. So good, so good, so good. But yeah, thank you guys for hopping on. I had a couple of requests for some just kind of handout information after this. So let me put some information together for you guys so you have a little bit of take home knowledge. But other than that, thank you guys for being here. Checking out the new setup. If you were on Instagram, let me know how the mic worked. That was kind of a new addition. And hopefully in the future, we're going to be testing out some new things with Friday Morning Fuel. So thank you guys so much for attending. I love you guys having the support here, coming out and learning some things. As always, I've got a lineup for the next 6 months, but if there's something you'd really like to see on Friday Morning Fuel, whether it's the cooking aspect or the learning aspect, just let me know, send me an email, connect with me on Teams, and yeah. All right, everybody, be safe, whatever your plans are for tonight. We'll see you next month. Remember, for first Friday for Friday Morning Fuel. All right. I'm going to shut this down. All of you wonderful people, thank you. Have a good one. Have a good one. All right, Instagram folks, thank you for hopping on. We'll be live next month. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.